Welcome to the Expansive Astrology Podcast, where we look at using astrology beyond the tropes and horoscopes to tune into the natural forces around us and within us, honoring our true nature to craft our future. I'm your host, Melissa, the Self-Care Witch, and I'm here to help you meet your magic. Without further ado, let's begin this week's episode with a tarot reading for the collective. Hi, welcome back to the Expansive Astrology Podcast. This is episode 45. This is your Taurus season episode. And I am so happy to be here. Switching from weekly to monthly was a really big change. And I feel all sorts of things. I feel all sorts of things about it. I feel nervous. I feel excited. I feel so thankful to be here. I'm so thankful that you're here listening. It's coming out later in the season than I would like. My intention is to get you these episodes early in the season so that you can really reflect on these things all throughout the season. So I'm also in a very sacred, very weird, just like very potent time in my life. I'm pregnant and I'm not going to be pregnant for too much longer. So I'm trying to really like roll with what my spirit and my body are telling me. And, I'm recording this a little later than, my preference would be. So if you're here listening, thank you. Thank you for being here, even though to me it's late. I hope it feels like it's also right on time. You know what I mean? But because of that, I decided I'm not going to do a collective tarot reading for this one. Give me any feedback if you have any feedback on that. But I was sitting here and I have so much to cover related to Taurus. And I really want the focus to be on Taurus for the rest of the season. I really want the focus to be on the tarot cards that are associated with Taurus. I just don't want to distract from that in any way. I believe I will go back to a collective tarot reading for Gemini season for the next episode. I think I kind of just do what I'm told by like spirit, by source, by my inner knowing, by my guidance every time. So I think that there will be a collective tarot reading next time, but who's to say? I don't know. Who knows? And I do welcome your feedback. I do take that into account. Do you like the collective tarot readings? Do you like them in the beginning of the episode? Should I put them at the end of the episode? Should I just focus on the astrology? Tell me what you think. But this is what's feeling right for me for this one. So I'm gonna roll with it. We'll trust it and see what happens. My brain doesn't like to shake things up like that. My brain really likes to keep things uniform and the same. And if I start something, I have to do it the same way every week forever until the end of time. Like I started Free Tarot Friday, not expecting it to be a weekly thing more than a year ago. And I think I've only skipped one, and it was like an accident. Or wait, no, I did that one on Saturday, I think. So I didn't even skip that one. I know I've skipped one in more than a year. I started these Moon Day reels on my Instagram, which kind of fell off as this pregnancy has progressed. But I just anecdotally just sharing that my brain doesn't like to shake things up. But man, my soul, spirit, my creativity, it's shaking things up all the time, really pushing me, really testing my trust and surrender, So here we are, smack dab in the middle of Taurus season. Eclipse season is finally over. Eclipses have been happening on the Scorpio-Taurus axis for the last year and a half, I believe. And that's finally over. Mercury retrograde is almost over. And Mercury is retrograde in Taurus. So, and I'm pregnant. And Taurus and the Empress don't necessarily represent mothers. A lot of people say the Empress is a mother. And that is one way to describe her, but she's also so much more than that. So it's not that Taurus is about mothers and motherhood, but we have we have Mother's Day in Taurus season. In my neck of the woods of the earth, it's a very fertile time of year for the earth. The trees are all fully blooming. There's tulips all over my neighborhood. I imagine very soon we'll start to see the ducklings and goslings on our walks. And I am pregnant as fuck. I am so pregnant. So it all is just, it's been really, really juicy for me over here. And definitely very challenging. Holy mother, don't let me skip past that part of it. It's also been super challenging. And I think what I've realized is that the more that I lean into the medicine, the more that I the things that I'm going to share with you today of what Taurus is all about. For me, the more I really lean into those things, taking walks every day, having flowers in my home, feeling the stubborn, fixed energy, feeling the grounded, stabilizing energy of the pentacles, moving through and with the parts of me that feel very defensive or controlling or hyper vigilant, like working through some shit related to my own mother. Like, the more I lean into all of it, the more aligned I feel. Imagine that. When I lean into what I'm present with, I feel aligned. When I go take walks every day and spend time outside and really stay connected to my motherhood and my femininity and my soul work, things are a little easier. Imagine that. and it's also been really hard. It's been really intense, between my pregnancy complications and this healing, inner child healing work that I'm doing, related to my relationship with my mother, navigating my work, which is very, it takes a lot of energy, my work in the world, and so it can be taxing in that way. And it's also rooted in creativity and connectedness and openness. And I feel like all of my creative life force is going toward growing a healthy baby. So it's hard to find balance there, and that brings my brain into all sorts of contraction. This is all part of it, right? And this is why I love this thing I've created here, Expansive Astrology, is because last season, Aries season, I was really sitting with and empowering myself around Aries energy, the sign of self, the fire sign, Queen of Wands. What am I? How do I use my voice? How do I take up space? How do I want to use my energy, my fire, my creativity? What am I building here? I really allowed myself to sit with those Aries themed things last season. And now here we are in Taurus season, landing in Taurus season. Or, we've landed. We've been here for a couple of weeks now. And we get to, if we choose, to really lean into and embrace and welcome in this Taurus energy. Allow me to stop vaguely rambling about my life. Let me tell you what Taurus energy brings. What is Taurus all about? Taurus is the second sign of the astrological year, so it rules the second house of possessions. It's an earth sign ruled by Venus, and its phrase is I have. And remember, we're coming out of Aries, the first sign of the astrological year, where the phrase was I am. And I really love to consider that progression from I am, the sign of self, to I have. Lindsay Mack compares Aries to the newborn. And if Aries is the newborn, coming in, taking up space, learning its lungs, Taurus is the toddler, kind of testing that space, kind of collecting things in that space, kind of figuring out what it's all about. Taurus is represented by the bull, and it is a fixed energy. It's also a feminine energy. And in the tarot, it is represented by the Empress, the Hierophant, and the Page of Pentacles. Let's talk about what all that means, okay? Earth, the element of earth, is a grounding, practical, hard-working element. It represents matter itself, all things earthly, encompassing our physical body, our material possessions, our finances, our work, our routine, everything that our hands touch, everything about being a soul in a human body on the planet Earth. Earth signs are interested in creating comfort, and each earth sign builds upon the last. We start with Taurus, and then later in the year we have Virgo, and then later after that we have Capricorn. And from Taurus to Virgo to Capricorn, they all have their unique earthly strengths that really mature as we move from one to the next. It's really fun to look at expansive astrology in that way too. The earth signs help us consider how can we use our resources, our time here. How can we use it most wisely to create an existence that is pleasurable? I'm always saying that Taurus is all about safety, security, stability, and pleasure. Taurus helps us really build a foundation of safety, security, stability, and pleasure. And Taurus is one of the signs that is ruled by Venus, which is the planet of love, beauty, and sex. It's the energy of pleasure and how we love. So these energies invite us to really consider where and how do you find pleasure? What do you find pleasureful? What is it like for you to lean into that? How often do you lean into that? How often do you prioritize or create pleasure for yourself? What does that look like for you? Historically, what has that looked like for you? What was modeled for you in terms of pleasure? What was taught to you when it comes to pleasure? What turns you on? And this is related to sex and sexuality, and it's bigger than that, because not everybody is interested in sex or engages in sex, and so this just includes passion and pleasure in any and every way. It's who and what we value and how we show that appreciation. It's Venus energy brings an invitation to be in connection with the gifts that are right here, all around us, romanticizing our lives. This is about opening ourselves up to receiving, which is very Taurus. It is very Empress, receiving pleasure, welcoming it, cultivating it, prioritizing it, valuing it, leaning into it with full permission. Not only when things are peachy keen and going well, but cultivating an ability to receive pleasure, cultivating an ability to cultivate pleasure, no matter what's going on. A willingness and an ability to be with that, no matter what's going on. And I'll always mention, like, that's not about bypassing the hard things, right? You can receive devastating news or be moving through something totally devastating and traumatizing and soul shattering, and still be available to receiving pleasure that exists. So you can practice right now and frequently throughout the next couple of weeks of Taurus season what is physically around you right now that is beautiful. What brings security and harmony? What is physically around you right now that lights you up? This is all Venus. This is all Taurus. And Taurus is a fixed energy. It's one of the fixed signs. So it grows deeper and expands and gets complicated. This is the only fixed earth sign. The other fixed signs are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. I also wanted to mention that Taurus is on the same axis as Scorpio. So these are both fixed signs, and they have they're opposing signs, but they have a lot in common, being on that same axis. Taurus, the phrase is I have. Scorpio, the phrase is I desire. And considering desire and how that relates with what I was just talking about with Venus, how I desire, Venus romanticizing your life, receiving and being and creating pleasure. I love considering the relationship there between Taurus and Scorpio, which are two very different signs, and yet aren't we all kind of the same? We're all so unique as just like individual human beings. We're all so unique, and yet we're all so the same. And, I guess that goes for these energies too, in a way. But the fixed signs, these are the signs that are known to be stubborn. They are not easily swayed. And that's what their power is. Their power is in their ability to focus energy very deeply. The fixed signs are associated with firmness, perseverance, and stability. These are the signs that provide structure. They solve problems and lead the way, and at the same time, fixed energy is known to be stubborn and inflexible. That confidence and self-assurance of fixed energies can be a gift, or it can be asinine and rude. So it's just something to be aware of. Am I feeling rather fixed right now? Would it be wise, perhaps, to adjust? Now, in the tarot, the element of earth is represented by the pentacles. The pentacles are often compared to coins or money and how we make money. And according to Soul Tarot, it's more than that. The pentacles are stabilizing and grounded, and they harness and cultivate the power of the material world. This is, like I was saying, it's about marrying our soul's calling, our soul work, with having a meat suit and a day job. The pentacles take us on a journey of slow, quiet root work, stabilizing groundwork that others may never see, but is the sustaining force of life. The pentacles are manifesting and generative. They're about cultivating and receiving. And with Taurus season, we talk about the Page of Pentacles, the student of Pentacles. The pages, according to Soul Tarot by Lindsay Mack, are fixed energy. They are the students. The page will always consult with its pentacles, with its soul work, before making any decisions. It's like a devotion to that soul work. Deep devotion to your purpose. The Page of Pentacles and Taurus energy is so rooted into the earth, so rooted into their purpose that they are constantly listening to the soul, completely willing to do the uncomfortable thing in order to fulfill what they know is right for their soul work. The student of what it means to align your head and your heart and your hands. So let me tell you what Taurus energy looks like IRL in its most empowered state, and also when it is disempowered, because that's what it's all about. That's what it all comes back to, right? Is what is the empowered choice here? How can I empower myself? How can I keep myself in my power? How can I exercise my power? How can I not lose power over myself and my life and how I'm showing up? So empowered Taurus energy is all about that romanticizing your life. It knows what it has and it builds from there. It's about finding safety, security, pleasure, stability, and beauty where you stand, with what you have, with what you know, the resources available to you already. Taurus energy is self-assured. Know your worth, your values, and where you stand. Give yourself full permission to relax and luxuriate and romanticize your life. Find nourishment. Tend to your sweet body. And learn how you can foster the love and security you seek. Beware of disempowered Taurus energy, which is stubborn and unmoving, controlling, possessive, defensive. Remember, you can't fake self-assuredness. And defensiveness is a telltale sign that it's fake. True self-assuredness is undefended. It's graceful. It's sure. With Taurus energy, beware of codependency. Beware of, notice if you feel an unwillingness to let go or change or see another point of view. Those are the telltale signs of disempowered fixed energy. That fixed energy combined with Taurus, combined with the Venus energy, can really kind of create or encourage a leaning into a false sense of security. It can create that codependency where we stay in damaging relationships or situations out of a need for stability, out of a need to feel safe and secure, because sometimes staying in the damaging relationship or situation is what feels the most safe. Whatever is familiar is what feels the most secure. Leaving a familiar situation almost always includes a even if momentary or even if mild, it always includes a sense of instability. Our brain does not like the unknown. So be aware of like that false sense of security. Get really real. Like, what is secure actually? Is staying in the situation because it is familiar, because maybe it is stable, maybe it has been for a long time. Stable does not equal healthy. Stable and familiar does not equal aligned, right? Is staying here the empowered choice? Consider for yourself as I unpack this, like how does Taurus energy show up for you, and when is it empowered and when is it not? So when thinking about things like safety, security, stability, and receiving pleasure, I look at what are the big barriers to those things? What makes that hard to do? So something I like to look at with expansive astrology is hypervigilance, overcoming hypervigilance, and creating a sense of safety. We have to talk about trauma and our responses to trauma and managing fight or flight, managing hypervigilance. Because negative triggering events happen. They happen a lot to all of us, and we witness them happen to others. And they linger, right? Trauma lingers. Our body remembers. Our system has a pretty simple filing system. We can become triggered or activated or traumatized quite easily. It doesn't take much. We are gentle, fragile. We're fragile. We really need safety and security and stability. And when we don't have those things, or when they weren't provided to us as children, our system can become very hyperactive. It can become activated really intensely, really frequently. And our system is simple. We can only ever be in fight or flight or rest and digest. Those are the options. That's it. And becoming activated, experiencing triggers, experiencing hypervigilance, this is the brain's way, it's the system's way of protecting ourselves from ever being hurt again. When we're speaking about trauma and responses to trauma, we're really speaking about brain chemistry. And with brain chemistry, we can always learn to choose whether or not we're going to take the brain's invitations. Now, there are things that activate within us that are outside of our control, right? We can't really control what if fight or flight is activated, but we can learn to manage whether or not we take those invitations, which means developing a very knowing and close relationship with your brain and how it operates, knowing your inner protector and what they are trying to accomplish and how to take control of the steering wheel again. Knowing intimately what happens when you are activated, what your system invites you into, and navigating between the earth, the world, your external circumstances, and all those different parts of you. The activated part of you, your inner protector, your inner child, your inner wise one. Many of us operate from a place of hypervigilance. We've been forced to. Our system maybe has been stuck in hypervigilance. And when I say hypervigilance, this is simply a state of heightened awareness, alertness, accompanied by behavior that aims to prevent danger. It's when the subconscious is always anticipating danger. And it's a common and natural response to trauma, and it is not helpful. It doesn't even work. It doesn't prevent anything. This is a long-term stress response, which has a serious impact on the mind and body. That frequent and maintained level of stress, any amount of stress, releases cortisol from the adrenal system, making us jumpy and on edge, making it difficult to relax or sleep. And over time, this forces us to seek respite from the stress, which can result in things like substance abuse and obsessive compulsive disorders, because it leads to these negative, scary what ifs that can become obsessions, and that can lead to compulsive behaviors. It can lead to codependency, an inability to self-regulate, anything to numb us so we don't have to deal with the stress, with the excess cortisol. And we know that our narratives impact our realities. So when the subconscious is always anticipating danger, if we're always in a state of fight or flight, if we're always in a state of heightened alertness with an intention or a goal, an aim to avoid or minimize traumatic or negative or activating events, and our narrative is constantly influenced in that way, that it impacts our experience of life. It impacts our reality on Earth, our experience on Earth. Dr. Noam Spencer said, quote, "Human beings are more than the sum of their hurts. A trauma-centered narrative itself may make moving on from trauma difficult. Attaching one's identity to past trauma provides relief by anchoring our sense of self in a coherent narrative amidst a storm of existence. Yet, once the story of my trauma becomes the story of me, moving on from it may feel like self-negation. Moving on from past adversity often requires a shift in how we perceive ourselves. Specifically, we may benefit from shifting our self-focus to our strengths and assets. This is not an act of denial or an excursion into positive thinking, but a useful and fair correction," unquote. So, how do we do this? This is difficult. As Dr. Spencer said, there's a part of our being that wants to identify with the trauma. It wants to identify with that narrative because it helps us to make sense of things that don't fucking make sense, of things that shouldn't exist, of things that shouldn't be real. So, Dr. Spencer says that a useful first move is to let go of the trauma-centered narrative. Let go of the misperception that what caused a problem to emerge in the past is what keeps it going in the present. He says, quote, "In general, certain difficulties that may have had their origin in past adversity are more commonly maintained in the present by the habit of avoidance. What's holding you back now is not your past adversity, but the avoidance habits enacted to cope with its aftermath. Such habits, unlike the past experience itself, can be changed. The way forward from trauma is by confronting in the present what your past had taught you to avoid," unquote. Oof. This is why presence and mindfulness and processing what is coming up for us when it's coming up for us. This is why like a healthy relationship with self-awareness is so important. And it's why I really value like narrative therapies. I work with my clients all the time on their narrative and how they are, the stories that they're telling. And as Dr. Schmancer acknowledged, this is not about journeying into positive thinking. Nay, nay. But rather it's about teaching ourselves and our system like that, yes, these things have happened. And yes, they have really impacted or helped to create my identity as it is today. And what exists right now is not danger or abuse or trauma. Right in this moment, I do hold power. I can affect change. And I trust in the universe. I understand divine timing. We can learn, we can embrace that as a rule, you will never experience anything on earth that was not meant to propel you forward in some ultimately positive way. You can adopt that belief wholeheartedly. Understand divine timing. Tell yourself always, I am always in the right place at the right time. I trust the timing of my life. Remember, your ideas for your life are here for a reason, and you have no clue what will ultimately be the absolute best for you. We are always curating better and better for ourselves based on the new information that we have, based on what life presents to us, always. So affirm it for yourself. I don't need to know the purpose of this right now. I don't need to know. I don't need to know the purpose of this right now. I don't need to know the why. And I can always choose my vibe. Because bad shit happens all the time. And it gets really hard to accept and believe that all of the bad shit is somehow divine. That's a pretty bold thing to think. It's a pretty bold thing to say. And can you trust in the universe? Can you surrender? Can you believe that your obstacles are portals? That you can always choose your vibe. You can always choose how you're going to respond, how you're going to stay in your power, even when you're faced with something taking your power away. The Hierophant in the tarot. The Hierophant historically was the guy that all of the townspeople went to for a message from God or for a connection to God. And Soul Tarot really has us reclaim the idea of the Hierophant for ourselves, each and every one of us, that we don't need any person, anything outside of us to have that connection with God. I've been kind of thinking of the Hierophant as like an external or more masculine expression of the High Priestess. Connection, a sense of knowing, a sense of trust. That ability to be quiet and mindful and present with what is being told to us or illuminated to us by God or by Spirit or wherever you get your inspiration, wherever you get your knowing, right? Whatever is bigger than you. You have that. You are that. You are the Hierophant, and we get to practice being the Hierophant in Taurus season. And I think having that connection to our inner Hierophant, trusting our connection to that which is greater than us, the universe, the divine, helps to make this narrative shift from I've been fucking traumatized and I need to prevent further trauma at all costs. I need to protect myself. The world is unsafe. My life is unsafe. This always happens. Something always happens. Those like very hypervigilant trauma-based narratives, they can exist, and they probably will. Can they coexist with a very hierophant, very empress, very safe, secure, stable Taurin? Is Taurin what we would say? Taurus-based narrative. Can those hypervigilance, nervous system, brain-based, trauma-centered beliefs or narratives coexist with a belief or a narrative that I know what to do? I am safe right now. I can always connect with God. I can be afraid or unsure and safe and empowered. I think some of the most important work I've ever done with my own healing and my own difficult brain is to add in that narrative too. And over time, learning to like turn down the volume on the fear-based, hypervigilant narratives and learning to turn up the volume on the rest of it, which at first I had to like force feed my brain beliefs and narratives that I am safe, I've got this, I don't need to be afraid, I can empower myself, I am not a victim here, I can find joy in this, gratitude in this, I trust and surrender. Like I had to force feed my brain those narratives for a very long time, and still sometimes, you know, especially with the pregnancy complications. I was really like struggling to believe that this is somehow happening for my highest good, or that I still had empowerment, you know. With things like pregnancy, and especially complicated pregnancies, you don't have a whole lot of power over what unfolds. I certainly didn't choose that shit for myself. So it's really easy to feel disempowered when things outside of your control are really influencing your reality, right? Of course. And force feeding my brain, reminding myself, oh, I believe that I always can choose how I show up. I believe that I am always in my power. I believe that I am always home. I believe that the universe is unfolding for me in divine ways that I am not privy to. And even if this goes exactly how I don't fucking want it to go, I still have those things. I still am those things. I am still safe. It's not easy. It wasn't easy. And it's true. But it's also a choice. Before we wrap up, I do want to talk about the Empress, receiving and cultivating pleasure. Because the invitations of Taurus come in two flavors, right? There's this stabilizing and cultivating safety, and also luxuriating and cultivating pleasure. This is where we are empowering ourselves, permissioning ourselves, positioning ourselves into a place of radical receptivity, which is foundational before we move into Gemini season, where we are evaluating and exploring and really feeling into what it is to be a magician, a channel, a body, a human. We can focus on building this foundation of really pleasurable, radical receptivity, and then we'll expand into that. We'll expand on that in a really beautiful way next season. And the importance of this cannot be understated. The importance of cultivating and receiving pleasure is foundational. It cannot be understated, and it's not something that we're taught to value. It's not something we're taught to do. And the truth is that when we don't receive, When we are forced into scarcity, we are forced to take. We're forced to take and scrounge and panic to have our needs met. When we don't receive beauty, abundance, and goodness, those things they have nowhere to go. So let's talk about what it means to romanticize your life. Can you practice more receiving? Right? Practice. How do you receive a delicious meal? A hug. An orgasm. How do you receive a compliment? Many people really struggle with that, right? How do you receive the sunshine? A break? Bad news? Your paycheck? Your vitamins? Using this idea that how we do one thing is how we do everything. Let's just practice. What is around you right now that you can practice receiving with? There are so many things that are not in our control. And this is power. What does having power over yourself and your world look like? What does having power over your brain chemistry and how you respond to those things? What does that look like? How does it look like to empower yourself in how you step into your day? What does it look like for you to embrace your power when bad things are happening? Harmful, hurtful, unhealthy, undesirable things. How can you touch in with your inner Empress, your inner Hierophant, and stay in your power? This Taurus work is all about the nitty-gritty here and now of hypervigilance and managing traumas and our trauma response. And then it's also about the more meta, big picture shit, like how you're spending each and every moment. No big deal. It's about what you do for yourself, your sense of deservingness, your ability to parent yourself effectively and gently, lovingly, your ability to guide yourself toward safety, security, stability, and pleasure. Now, in a couple weeks, we'll be moving into Gemini. We'll be moving from fixed earth into mutable air, which feels like a pretty drastic shift. Gemini is lively, energetic, versatile, intellectual. It tends to really live in the mind. This next season, Gemini season, is all about self-expression. And it's very interested in others. Gemini really sees itself in others. It wants to know others and be accepted by others, and it is interested in knowing and understanding everything. Taurus, where the phrase is I have, and we're expertly working with and tending and cultivating the soil of the space that Aries carves out for us. Taurus helps us make that space a safe and pleasurable place to exist. And then Gemini, we get to bring that from the ground up and through us, bring that power, that magic through us and into the world. Gemini helps us to connect what is inside of us to what is outside of us and really create magic there. So that nervous system work, the hypervigilance work, the practice of cultivating pleasure with Taurus season is foundational to really showing up in Gemini season with the full force of our power. With Aries, the exploration is I am. With Taurus, we're exploring I have. And then with Gemini, the phrase is I think. So there are big invitations with Gemini, with the Magician and the Lovers. And Gemini in the court cards is the Knight of Swords. And I just mentioned all of that as a little preview to hopefully emphasize to you how important Taurus is first. The timing is divine. I am always obsessing over the way each season prepares us for the next, and really they build upon each other, especially in how I've laid it out in Expansive Astrology. And we have a lot to look forward to in Gemini season, and let's not get ahead of ourselves. Doing this Taurus inspired work is going to set us up for that Gemini exploration here in a couple of weeks. So until then, I really hope that this Taurus episode has served. I hope it feels inspiring and juicy and empowering for you as we move through the next couple of weeks of Taurus season. And I will see you back here for Gemini season. And for me, just so you are aware, I will be moving into my maternity leave in early June. So there are only 2 more moon meetups in May. Those are on the 14th and the 28th. And my schedule is filling up quickly with one-on-one coaching and tarot reading clients for May. I do have some availability, so that's something that you would like to do. Certainly let me know. Don't delay. I would love to have you before I retreat into my little family, mommy, birth cave. I will be taking a break from sessions and moon meetups until further notice. I'm not entirely sure how long of a break I will be taking. My intention is to pre-record podcasts, and we will see how that goes. My intention is to have a podcast for every season, and I will be keeping up with the Meet Your Magic monthly membership as well. So if you would like to support me while I'm on my maternity leave, if you would like to stay connected in that way, remember, with the Meet Your Magic monthly membership, for only $25 a month, you receive a monthly tarot reading, personalized just for you every time, and an all-access pass to moon meetups. And my intention is to keep moon meetups somewhat alive for my members via email while I am on maternity leave. So that will come in the form of a PDF with journaling prompts, and it'll just be really low-key, pretty simple way of me still bringing you Expansive Astrology in moon meetup form, in email form, while I am taking my maternity leave. So if that's all something that you are interested in, you know where to find more information. Check out theselfcarewitch.com and you can get yourself signed up. Thank you to my members. I cannot thank you enough. I love you so much. And on that note, I am going to go. Thank you for being here. I will see you in a couple of weeks for Gemini season. And until then, take care. Bye. Now, before you go, let me keep your ear for just a moment. This week's episode is brought to you by www.theselfcarewitch.com, my bread and butter, where you can find more information on my current courses, offerings, and other fun ways to connect with myself and yourself. If you enjoyed this episode and you dig what I'm doing here, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and leave a review. It helps so much. And if you'd like to connect with me, head to theselfcarewitch.com. I'd truly love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.